My name is Elena Martinez. I'm 38 years old, and I was born in Seville, Spain. I used to think my life was normal, a word people use when everything looks fine on the outside, even if it's quietly falling apart inside. I was married, a mother of 2 small children, and worked as a social worker. Everyone saw me as the strong one, someone always listening, always helping others through their pain. But the truth is, I carried a sadness that no one saw, a silence in my soul that screamed louder every year. Since I was a teenager, a single question haunted me: where is the real God? I grew up Catholic, later visited evangelical churches, explored charismatic movements, even tried just praying on my own. I read the Bible, watched online sermons, sang the songs, but I always left feeling emptier than when I came in. Something never sat right. Why did the messages feel so rehearsed? Why did church feel more like a business than a place of healing? Why were people worshiping with their lips, but their hearts felt cold? I didn't speak about this out loud, not even to my husband. I was afraid of sounding crazy or rebellious. But deep inside, I would cry out at night, whispering, "God, if you are real, show me who you really are. Show me what you truly want." I had no idea that he was about to answer me, but not in the way I expected. Not in a dream, not in a sermon, but in death. By the time I turned 38, I had already visited more than a dozen churches, Catholic masses, Baptist services, Pentecostal revivals. Some were full of fire and music, others were quiet, almost poetic. And yet, in all of them, I felt like a stranger, like I was watching something meant to be holy, but diluted. Beautiful words, but without the power to touch the deep places of my soul. I began to notice how people clung more to the structure than to the spirit. There were rules, expectations. Dress this way. Don't question that. Pay your tithes. Stay in line. But my soul didn't want rules. It wanted truth. I remember one Sunday morning sitting in the back row of a bright modern church. The pastor was preaching about prosperity, about blessings and breakthroughs. People were cheering, clapping, even crying. And yet something inside me whispered, "This isn't it." I looked around and felt an overwhelming sadness. Are we all just pretending? Are we seeking God or seeking comfort? At night, I would lay awake, staring at the ceiling, whispering prayers I wasn't even sure God heard. I didn't want church anymore. I wanted Him, not the God of Instagram verses or emotional music, but the living God, the one who sees, hears, and speaks. Still, I carried on with life, work, parenting, chores. Outwardly, everything looked fine, but inwardly, I was fading. And then came that day, the day that tore the curtain between this world and the next. It was a Tuesday afternoon, cloudy, uneventful, one of those days that just blends into the week. I had just finished a home visit with one of my clients, a single mother struggling with addiction. I remember sitting in my car for a few moments, staring out the windshield, emotionally exhausted. I whispered a prayer half-heartedly. "God, are you even real?" I started driving home, taking the same route I always did. Narrow roads, countryside views outside the city of Seville. I was thinking about dinner, the kids' homework, bills, everything except what was coming. Then, in a blink, everything changed. A white van lost control on the opposite lane. I saw it too late. There was no time to swerve, no time to scream. Just the deafening sound of metal tearing through metal, glass shattering, and my body jolting violently. Everything slowed down. No pain, no fear, just a surreal silence. Then, darkness. But it wasn't nothing. It was something. A space. A moment. And then I knew. I was dead. I couldn't explain it, but I knew with certainty. Not because someone told me, but because my spirit was suddenly free from my body. There was no heartbeat, no breath, no struggle, just stillness. Weightlessness. A deep, almost indescribable peace. Just stillness. Weightlessness. A deep, almost indescribable peace. I had left this world, but my journey was only beginning. Ashari, and now I want to ask you, the one watching this, have you ever felt like something was missing, even in church, even while praying? Do you believe God still speaks today? Write in the comments. What is your greatest question about God, faith, or eternity? Don't be afraid. This is a space for truth. I read every message. I didn't rise slowly. I was simply there, suspended above the crash site, as if time had paused. Below me, I saw the wreck. My car was crushed in the front, smoke curling upward, the windshield shattered like a spider web of light. And then I saw me, my body, slumped, motionless, eyes slightly open, blood on my forehead. It was horrifying, but also surreal, because I wasn't afraid. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't even sad. I just looked at myself with a strange kind of compassion, like watching a person you used to be but had outgrown. That flesh, that body, those worries, none of it mattered anymore. Around me, the air shimmered. It wasn't like the air we breathe, it was alive. Every molecule vibrated with light and awareness. And in that moment, I knew I was not alone. A presence emerged behind me. I didn't need to turn. I felt it, powerful, loving, immense, yet gentle beyond words. I didn't hear words through ears. The voice came through everything, through the space, through my spirit. Elena, do not fear. I fell into a light. Not white, not yellow. It was beyond color, like liquid love and infinite knowing wrapped in one. And within it, I felt a pull. A journey had begun. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment, maybe in a dream or near death, where you felt your soul step outside your body? Write in the comments, do you believe our spirit continues after death? Why or why not? Your story matters. As I moved through that light, I noticed something strange. There was no time. No minutes ticking, no yesterday or tomorrow. Everything just was. Complete. Whole. Eternal. I was being drawn somewhere. Gently but irresistibly. Not walking, not flying, just moving as if the light itself was carrying me. Then, the presence beside me intensified. It wasn't just light anymore. It had form, majestic, bright, living. I couldn't look directly. It was like trying to stare into the sun and a waterfall at the same time. But somehow, I knew who it was. Jesus. Not the religious figure on stained glass. Not the soft image in church paintings. But the real one, full of authority, but overflowing with love. He didn't ask my name. He didn't need to. He knew me. All of me. And then it began. A life review. Not as punishment, but as truth. I saw moments I had long forgotten. The lies I told, the bitterness I held, the pride I carried while pretending to be humble. But also, the moments I loved sincerely, the children I comforted, the quiet prayers I whispered in the dark. Every action, every word, even every thought had weight. Not judgmental weight, but eternal consequence. I wasn't condemned. I was seen, completely. And the most shocking part? He wept for the things that hurt me. He showed me not just my sins, but how deeply he longed to heal me from them. And then he said, "There is something you must see. Now I ask you, from my soul to yours, if today were your last day and your life was laid bare before a holy God, what would he show you? Write in the comments. What do you think your life review would reveal? What moments would shine or bring sorrow? This is not to judge, but to awaken. Be honest. Be brave. I'm reading with you." Jesus turned, and suddenly the light shifted. It was no longer just around me. It became a vision, a deep unveiling. He said, "What you are about to see is not for fear, but for truth." And then, I saw them. 3 churches, not buildings, not denominations, but spiritual realities, represented by churches on earth. Each one shone with a purity that pierced through the fog of confusion I had lived in for years. They were different in style, different in location, but they had something in common: holiness, obedience, truth. These churches didn't entertain. They repented. They didn't chase followers. They chased God's presence. Their pastors were not celebrities, but servants. Their people were humble, broken, real. Some were in small buildings hidden from the world. Others were larger, but stripped of worldly ambition. I saw people praying on floors, weeping for souls, fasting for the lost. And I heard Jesus say, "These are mine, not because of their name, but because of their heart." Then he showed me a word above each of the 3. 1. Worship in spirit and truth. 2. Faithful in persecution. 3. Pure bride awaiting the groom. No denomination was mentioned. No country. No label. Only faithfulness. And I began to cry, because I realized how many people like me had been chasing buildings instead of God himself. Bad Steve now, I ask you, with all sincerity, do you belong to one of these churches? Is your heart burning for holiness, or just tradition? Write in the comments, what do you believe makes a church truly belong to God? Have you ever experienced a place like this? Let's speak truth together. Someone else needs your words today. After the light of the 3 true churches faded, a new vision appeared. Dark, heavy, thick with sorrow. I saw churches, Some beautiful, massive, filled with lights, music, and people shouting. Others were small and quiet, traditional. But Jesus said, "Watch not their size, but their fruit." And then my spirit trembled, because these churches, so full of activity, programs, money, charisma, were dead inside. I saw preachers with golden microphones, shouting scriptures they didn't live. I saw people dancing, singing, but when they left, their lives were full of hatred, gossip, secret sins. And worse, I saw demons walking freely in some of these buildings, not hiding, comfortable. They sat beside the choir. They whispered to pastors. They fed pride to leaders and spiritual numbness to the people. Jesus whispered, heartbroken, "They use my name, but I do not know them." Some churches preached love, but ignored repentance. Others preached power, but had no holiness. And some were completely twisted, using the Bible to control, manipulate, and profit. I saw a river of souls flowing into these places, and then falling unknowingly into darkness. It was unbearable. I cried out, "Why don't they see it?" And Jesus replied, "Because they do not want to see." But then he looked into my eyes and said, "This is why you must go back. Tell them. Please, I beg you now. Have you ever sat in a church that felt spiritually dead? Have you questioned what's truly behind the message being preached? Write in the comments. What signs do you think reveal when a church has left God's path? Your voice might help someone wake up. Speak the truth in love. I fell to my knees. If a soul can kneel, and wept. I didn't want to go back. Not because I didn't love my family, but because once you've touched the presence of Jesus, everything on earth feels like dust. I didn't want to return to a broken world full of noise, lies, and distractions. But he looked at me with eyes that held eternity and said, "Elena, many are being deceived. Many are asleep. You have seen what few have. You must return and tell them what I showed you. This is not a story. It is a warning born in my mercy." I asked, trembling, "Will they believe me?" And he answered, "Some will reject you, but others, those who are truly mine, will hear your voice and feel me calling them." Then he touched me, not with a hand, but with a surge of light that filled every part of my spirit. In that moment, I felt boldness, love for the lost, clarity I never had before. And then I felt myself being pulled backward. The light faded, the peace dimmed, and the pain of the earth began to return. Now I ask you, yes, you reading this, if God gave you a mission, would you obey it? Even if the world mocked you? Would you risk everything to tell people the truth? Write in the comments. What do you believe God is calling you to do in these times? No calling is too small. Declare it. I gasped. Air filled my lungs like fire. My chest heaved and pain shot through every inch of my body. Machines beeped, nurses shouted. A light above me burned my eyes. I was back, in a hospital bed, alive, but nothing felt the same. My body was broken, ribs fractured, head bandaged, limbs numb, but that wasn't the worst pain. The real pain was spiritual. The weight of everything I had seen was pressing on my soul. I tried to speak, but the nurses told me I had been unconscious for nearly 8 minutes. They said it was a miracle I survived. But how could I explain that I hadn't just been unconscious? I had stood in the presence of Christ. I had seen churches deceiving millions. I had been given a mission. I told my husband. He listened in silence, trying to comfort me, but I saw the fear in his eyes. I shared it with some church friends. They smiled awkwardly and said, "Maybe it was just a dream." No, it was realer than this world. And so I stayed silent for a while, afraid, alone, wrestling with the fire inside me. But one night I woke up crying, not from pain, but because I heard his voice again. "Elena, speak." So I began. One video, one testimony, one truth at a time. And now, here you are, listening. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever felt the urge to speak a truth that no one wanted to hear? Have you ever stayed silent out of fear? Write in the comments. What is something God has shown you that you've been afraid to say? This is your moment. Be bold, I'll stand with you. I'm not here to entertain. I'm not here to argue theology or prove myself to skeptics. I'm here because I died. And God let me see what's coming. He let me see the churches that belong to Him, pure, humble, burning for truth. He let me see the churches that use His name but serve another master, full of pride, deception, and distraction. And He let me see souls, so many souls, marching blindly toward eternity. People sitting in pews every week thinking they are saved. Yet they've never truly repented. Leaders preaching smooth words while their hearts are far from God. Families clinging to religion but rejecting the presence of the Holy Spirit. And the worst part? Most of them don't even know it. But I'm telling you now, with tears in my eyes and fire in my bones, God is calling his people back to him, away from man-made systems, away from emotional hype, back to the cross, back to holiness, back to him. I'm just a woman, a mother, a wife, a soul that cried out, "God, where are you?" And he answered, through death. Now I live with one purpose: to warn, to awaken, to call you home. Don't wait for the next tragedy. Don't wait for the next sermon. He's calling you now. Now it's your turn to speak. This video wasn't just a story. It was a mirror. Write in the comments, what did this testimony stir in your heart? Do you feel God calling you to leave behind deception and follow him fully? Share it. Declare it. Someone else is reading who needs your courage to wake up. If you watched this far, it wasn't by accident. Maybe you've been questioning your church. Maybe you've been feeling distant from God even while doing all the right things. Or maybe, deep down, you know something is wrong in the spiritual atmosphere around you. This is your confirmation. God is still speaking. He's still separating light from darkness, even inside churches. This testimony isn't about fear. It's about mercy. A chance to wake up, return to him, and live with purpose before it's too late. So I ask you now, will you respond? Will you repent? Will you rise? Comment below. What truth hit you the hardest in this video? Do you know someone who needs to hear this? Share your thoughts. Your voice might be the spark that lights someone else's soul. And if this message stirred something deep in your heart, subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, share this testimony. Not for numbers, not for fame, but because we are running out of time. Jesus is coming back for a pure bride, and it starts with you.